Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Friday. It's FPC Radio Live. We are almost through the month of May. It's surprising as that sounds. We're May 20th. Yeah, May 20th. I should probably look at that right before I said it, but fortunately I was correct. Another kind of jam-packed short episode here today as we navigate through the doldrums of the NFL season as we're approaching the really quiet, make you just yearn for any bit of news days of the NFL. But however, good for us, John. We have the playoffs both in the NBA, NHL, and of course, baseball is going for those who celebrate and recognize the sport of baseball. So, John, how are you doing on this Friday? Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever the hell you are around the world. Hello.
Yes, I'm a big jet setter, obviously.
Yes.
No, I'm in the Eastern time zone, just like you are. So we're
how do you know that?
In that sense,
you don't know where I am.
That's true.
I could be anywhere. I could be anywhere right now. I am.
Yes,
actually,
you are a jet setter.
No, I am in fact, yes, in the Eastern time zone. I am sitting in my shorts and t-shirt that I slept in mostly last night at home in bed. So I don't want to put any make any assertions that I'm off elsewhere. No, I'm here. I'm in what many people consider a vacation area, so I'm good.
Yeah, and the home of the two-time defending Stanley Cup champions, who are now up 2-0 over the President's Trophy winner Florida. And don't be surprised if they're the three-time defending champion. Stanley Cup champions.
That's the thing, John. I don't like. Here's the thing, and I don't like the Lightning, obviously, because I'm a Bruins fan, and there's a direct competition aspect to it. Obviously, I will root for the Buccaneers because I'm a Brady fan. So there's this disconnect. Living down here. No, I'm not a fan of either team. I am a fan of one player that happens to play for one of the teams down here. I happen to hate the Lightning, John. I hate them because they stand in the way of the Bruins. Almost as much as the Bruins stand in the way of themselves. But part of me has come to appreciate the greatness. And by that I mean I've never personally seen a team win 3 Stanley Cups in a row. It happened when I was an infant. Edmonton won 4, but that again, I was.
No, actually, they didn't. They won sorry, 4 in 5 years.
I'm sorry, but they. Yeah. You're correct. You're correct. But my original statement is still I've never seen a team win 3 Stanley Cups in a row. I mean we've seen it happen back to back. I mean Pittsburgh did it a few years ago. We've seen Detroit do it in the late 90s, and we've seen other teams have nice runs. I have not seen a team win 3 in a row. So do I want them to win? Not necessarily. As a fan, probably not. I'm probably, my rooting interest is probably Colorado because of Cale Makar and UMass. That UMass connection. I gotta root for my my guy there.
Root for your school.
Yeah. But I'm not, and this is the thing, and this is what I try to preach to people that just hate what the Patriots or what Brady does in the NFL. It's like you can dislike it, but just appreciate the greatness because it doesn't happen all the time. And I think you're seeing that to some extent with the Lightning because this is a team that we thought finally this year maybe they it caught up to them, and who would blame them? You know what I mean? They get two seasons of Stanley Cup runs, one of which was in the bubble, and it kind of threw everything off. They're still rounding into form, which is crazy to think that this is a team that all regular season kind of just, I wouldn't say went through the motions, but it seems like they're a championship. They flipped the switch, so to speak, and it's impressive. So, am I necessarily rooting for it? Probably not. However, I said this yesterday to someone that is a Lightning fan and someone who watches hockey, and I said, look, I mean, I would have bet my money on the Lightning in this series because you talk about a franchise, the Panthers, who won their first playoff series, John, since I was in 5th grade. Like that okay, that's a great accomplishment, but clearly you have to win more than just one series. So to me, I look at that, I say, this is no match. You have a team that's, probably very, very happy to just get over that hump, regardless of whether or not they're the President's Trophy winner, uh, going up against a more than seasoned Stanley Cup contending team who just looks to be playing their best hockey right now. So unfortunately, I think for the Panthers, this might end up very much like their 1996 Stanley Cup final appearance, where they won 0 games. They lost 4 games to nothing to the Colorado Avalanche. So, yeah, I don't want to see them win, but part of me wants to see the history. You know what I mean? 3 in a row. That's impressive. Certainly in the modern era of the NHL.
The impressive thing about them, and again, I'm not the hockey guy you are, but it seems like they can win any style of game, right? 2-1, can go into overtime and win. They can also win 6-5. Like, they have multiple ways to beat you, which is pretty much the mark of a great team. And again, I'm older than you, so I saw the Canadians win 4 straight, and it always seemed like they were beating the Bruins at some point. As I've often said, Ken Dryden and the Canadians ruined my childhood.
Yeah.
Because in the 70s, hockey was right there along with the other sports as my favorite. And then we saw the Islanders do it, and we saw again the great Edmonton teams won 4 and 5 years, I believe, and then 5 and 7 years, with and without Gretzky. But this team seems to be, I don't know if I could quite put them on that level, but they are very resilient and able to win Game 7 in a 1-goal goal. They did that last year against the Islanders, right, in the semifinals, because of all the different divisions. They won 1-0, I think, in Game 7 over the Islanders, and then they win Game 7 against Toronto this year in overtime. It's like they never panic. I mean, they have a great goaltender. I think Victor Hedman's a superstar defenseman.
And that's honestly, real quick, that's the key right there. I specifically for this Lightning team is Andrei Vasilevsky. And I said this before the first Stanley Cup win. I thought the team that benefited the most from the COVID pause was the Tampa Bay Lightning, because I felt that Vasilevsky was wearing down heading into what could have been a long playoff run, but I think ultimately would have fell short. And this is coming off the heels. Remember, it seems like a long, long time ago. There's a lot that's happened between now and their 4-game sweep at the hands of the Columbus Blue Jackets a few seasons ago, where you're sitting there thinking, oh, this team went out and won the President's Cup and then went out and got swept in the first round. Well, they haven't lost a playoff series since. So, right. I think they've made up for that. But yeah, you look at it, it begins and ends with Andrei Vasilevsky, because, there are teams in this league that have plenty of talent, and Tampa Bay is certainly at the top of that list. I'm not saying that they don't, but what these other teams don't have is something that's kind of becoming a little bit of a rarity here in the NHL, and that is the workhorse every second of every game goaltender. And we don't get the 65-70 start guys like Marty Brodeur anymore, unless it's Andrei Vasilevsky. And he does this in the playoffs. He's great in the playoffs. His game elevates in the playoffs, whereas like you look across the league and you have question marks at goaltending and pretty much every team, whether it's injury or inconsistency or goaltending tandem, it doesn't matter. Tampa Bay could be underperforming defensively, they could be overperforming defensively, they could be struggling offensively. Andrei Vasilevsky is going to be great. And I think that ultimately, of all the advantages Tampa has, that is the very top of them, in my opinion.
That's the checkmate, right? Because
absolutely.
If it's an even game, even series, he's the decider. He's that good. So yeah, I mean, and now you've got the 2 championships behind you, so he's playing with a ton of confidence. Although, again, you're the goaltender, you know that can wane at certain moments. But also,
not for him.
If you're playing,
not for him.
If you're playing with confidence, it's going to carry you. And I think it carries the entire team. They're almost like, okay, we didn't play a great game, but that big fella in the net kind of saved us. That's what the great goaltenders do.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing. It's like with Vasilevsky, I have no. Even if he goes out and has a bad period or he has a bad 20, I'm just like, whatever. Like I look at how this Eastern Conference is set up right now, and right now 2-0 on Florida, on the road. So I honestly think they're probably going to sweep this series. I think they are. I mean, at this point, I don't see what Florida, I don't know. I personally think they're going to probably end this in 4 games. But then you look over and you have Carolina and New York, and it's like, okay, I give neither of those teams a shot at all to beat Tampa Bay, which tells me that they're on a straight line to the Stanley Cup final again. And whoever comes out in the West, we can maybe discuss that at a later point and see if maybe that they can possibly handle this type of team. But like I said, I mean, it might be time to just accept the inevitable that it's probably, if you're going to ask me, Tampa Bay Lightning or the Field, I'm taking Tampa Bay versus any other team left in the Stanley Cup playoffs right now, because at the end of the day, there's no other team in the league right now I have as much confidence in, not only the goaltender but the rest of their team. And on a side note, anyone who's listened to me talk about hockey knows I am not a Sergei Bobrovsky fan who just happens to be in net for the Florida Panthers right now. And this isn't saying anything about his performance specifically. I'm just saying I don't have all the confidence in the world when he's needed. So, it'll be interesting to see. The Celtics rebounded literally and figuratively last night, waning hours of the day, because the games are starting at, close to midnight as you can possibly get, apparently. But what a comeback performance. And what I think it did, John, was kind of reassure my initial feeling after game 1. And that was, they were exhausted in the third quarter, and they just played, they just had a bad 12-minute game time stretch. And it was more about them than it was about the Heat. And I think what we saw yesterday pretty much supported that, in my opinion.
And I'm not one. Yeah. I'm not. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. Yeah, I was done. Trust me, I was probably going to weaken my point if I kept talking. So please go ahead.
That's okay. I'm a master of that. What happened in game 1? Obviously, you didn't have 2 starters in Marcus Smart and Al Horford, and these teams in the playoffs, with the possible exception of Golden State, aren't terribly deep. They play 7, maybe 8 guys. So if you're without 2, it really is going to put a lot of stress on your starters. And I thought what we saw in the beginning of the second half in game 1 was it got to Jason Tatum. You're asking him to be the primary ball handler, scorer, defender, rebounder. I mean, as I've said a million times, you can count on one hand in the history of the sport of players who have to do all of that and do it in high-stress situations. And it kind of got to him. Last night with Marcus Smart there, and the only thing about Marcus Smart, I wasn't thrilled that he led the team in field goal attempts, but that's okay. Other than that, it was pretty much perfect. He handles the ball. He sets up your offense. The offense was outstanding. Then you go out and shoot 50% from three-point territory for the game, but 63% in the first half. I mean, that's unheard of. And your offense really flowed because Smart was there facilitating for Tatum and Brown and the rest of the players. And then Horford's out there. So now you're able to roll out your starting lineup, which is Horford, Rob Williams, Jaylen Brown, Jason Tatum, and Marcus Smart. You're talking about 5 elite or very good defenders. So Miami really can't go hunt anybody. And you saw that on the defensive end, how good they were. And they built up a 70-45 lead at the half, which, as tough as Miami is, no one's coming back from that.
No, and look, I mean, you saw Marcus Smart's value instantly on the court. I mean, he was, obviously we know he can score the ball, but just defensively, the tone setting, and to your point, having to put everything on Jason Tatum, like, yes, he's a superstar and that's what he does, but this team is willing to defer to the hot hand to some extent. Like, it's always, and it always should come down to your best players, but if Peyton Pritchard's shooting well, they're going to let him take shots. Excuse me.
Yeah.
Sorry, I just sneezed, and luckily I hit the mute button, so that didn't come across the microphone there.
I didn't hear it. I thought you just stopped talking. I was going to just
I muted myself. Generally, I mute myself when you're talking, and I'm muttering under my breath some of the things that you're saying, just so you don't hear me. But this time I used it just for the purpose of not sneezing on the microphone. But Grant Williams, again, they kind of joked about it in Game 7. It's like, okay, yeah, you got your 18 shots. Enjoy that, because it's not going to happen again. But they're willing to defer to those guys when they have the hot hand, and I think that's what happened with Marcus Smart. And again, we saw so far we've seen 8 quarters of basketball, 6 of which have been heavily dominated by the Celtics. I think the fourth quarter of game 1 was so for both sides. Obviously, third quarter was all Miami, but you're talking about over the last 2 games on the road. I'm coming out of that thinking, man, Celtics are in great shape if they stay healthy, because I mean, even if you cut that field goal percentage by a few percentage points, they're still walking out of Miami with a pretty healthy victory.
Yeah, I mean, and this is something the Celtics have done the second half of the season. I mean, they win on the road, they blow teams out on the road. At times, they almost feel more comfortable on the road. It almost feels like they shoot better on the road. I mean, they had again, when you shoot 50% from 3, you're going to win those games. But I think they're a better team than Miami. We both agreed on that going into the series. Miami can cause some problems because they're well coached, they're tough-minded, they're a veteran group. But now if PJ Tucker's out, they're losing a valuable member who's an outstanding defender. And we have to see if Kyle Lowry comes back. If he doesn't, then I think Miami's depleted, and this series sets up for a Celtics victory and a trip to the finals. They're the better team. I don't think there's any doubt about that. And when they play to their ceiling, they're going to be difficult to beat, not just for Miami, but either Golden State or Dallas in the NBA Finals. I would say, and I've been saying this really the last 2 months, this is the best team in basketball when they're clicking on all cylinders.
But and we've seen it. They're capable of having poor stretches. Just fortunately for them, they don't necessarily last that long.
Right.
Just also, unfortunately, sometimes that's enough to lose a game, as we saw in Game 3, Game 2 in the third quarter, where it really was like you had to get the worst possible quarter of basketball from the Celtics, and specifically Jason Tatum, who just wasn't necessarily ineffective offensively, but he was turning the ball over too, to a rate that, again, you're not going to see that happen. I like what the Celtics team is doing. I like how they're set up moving forward. And look, I mean, if they can go in and just take care of business and not worry about, I think maybe the biggest gripe, and it's a double-edged sword, John, because they're so deadly with the 3-point shot. And it's not all that they can do. And I think this is why it becomes frustrating sometimes, because like when the offense isn't necessarily going as smoothly as it can be, they tend to sometimes over depend on the 3-point shot attempt. And sometimes it's just not working for them. And I think that can get them in trouble because they're such a great team moving the ball and creating high percentage shots for themselves. I mean, sometimes, you're given the opportunities that the opposing defense gives you, and you have to give credit to them. But I think we can both agree that sometimes they get a little too 3-point happy. And that's, again, it's a double-edged sword, because what we saw last night was, when it's on, I mean, they're just a deadly offensive team to go along with being a great defensive team. So, I think if the Celtics can continue to keep that balance over the next few weeks, I mean, again, like you said, I mean, this team is well set up to make a run at an NBA championship. And I think, you got to take advantage of it, because as we see all the time, not just in the NFL, but these windows don't stay open forever. And as much as you think, like, I mean, let's be real. I mean, when we were talking go back a few years, and you're thinking about Golden State, and you're like, man, this team's still got another 4 or 5 years in them. Now they're just another championship contender. I mean, it's still a great position to be in, but they're not, it's Golden State, they're obviously going to win this year type of team.
Right. Well, Golden State went to 5 straight finals, right? And then the next 2 years, they didn't even qualify for the playoffs because of injuries. Klay Thompson was out both years.
But that's part of it, though.
But that can happen. That is, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, you trade for James Harden, and he starts to age in dog years, and all of a sudden, Philadelphia is not the contender we thought they were going to be. And then you get Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant together, and you think that's going to be a championship caliber team. The process is now. It's like, processed cheese. Does that ever go bad?
I was going to say, this is like akin to the big dig right now. I mean, that's exactly what we're going through right now.
Yeah, that is. Yeah, and almost as costly, right? Because Kyrie's looking for a max contract, and Ben Simmons is going to make $38 million a year, and we haven't seen him play in a year. But the Celtics are in a great spot right now. But we don't see these dominant teams like we saw for so long. LeBron dominating the East and Golden State dominating the West, and they met 4 straight years in the finals. It was like, okay, wake me up when the finals start, and we'll see what happens. Now it's just you've got some teams that are a little bit flawed. So I think it makes it much more interesting, right? I mean, the second round was quite interesting. Celtics, Milwaukee go to 7, Dallas, Phoenix go to 7. The other series are going to 6. They're hotly contested series. We'll see what happens here in the conference finals if Dallas can kind of bounce back here in Game 2 against Golden State. But yeah, right now, 538 with Nate Silver has the Celtics winning the championship. He's got them at 70% chance of winning the championship. Second is Golden State at 12%. He's telling us that he thinks, and again, he's never been wrong before, right? That there's a 6-1 chance that the Celtics win the championship over Golden State. Like, that doesn't even seem to make any sense, but that's where they're going at it. And this isn't something just occurred in the last week or two. Back to March, he was talking about the Celtics being the favorites. And right now, they, to me, look like the best team, or the team with the fewest holes, put it that way, because they play elite defense, and we see what they're doing on offense now.
Well, and look, and again, it's I agree with that. And it's not necessarily just about having the fewest holes. I mean, I think this team is legitimately well positioned to be a championship team, regardless of who was remaining. I do think, again, based on 8 quarters of basketball and the fact that I believe that the Celtics have pretty handily dominated 6 of those 8 quarters against the Heat. I think Milwaukee was probably a tougher matchup. Obviously because Giannis, I mean, I know Jimmy Butler liked to talk about being physical or whatever the other day. I don't know how much he did talking of that last night after last night's game. But he's not Giannis. And that physical dominance is more. Look, the Celtics didn't fall for his little pump fake upshot, drawing the foul plays like they did constantly in game 1. I mean, that kind of speaks a lot to what I felt was they just kind of ran out of steam and energy. And, that leads to very lazy turnover basketball, and certainly one that would be, make them prone to getting fouls on everyone knows he's going to do the pump fake. Everyone knows he's going to do it. It's the little fake up and draw, and that's the kind of the funny thing now when we talk about the discourse of what we went through last series, where it was like every time the Celtics took a charge, it was the flop, and no other team in the history of basketball ever played basketball defense like that. But now I'm sitting there seeing Jimmy Butler took a charge that was a flop. You know what I mean? It's like in the last series, it's like you were calling this a flop. Where's that energy now? It's the reality of it is it's basketball, people. Like, get over it. I mean, I still see Bucks fans complaining about Giannis not getting calls, and I'm like, dude, whatever you want to convince yourself, the guy still sits there, lowers his shoulder, and drives into you. You go ahead and stand in front of that and tell me you're not going to fall down when he hits you. Sure. But I digress. The Heat, physical, yes, but if the Celtics are disciplined enough, they're not going to fall into that trap of getting in foul trouble and getting those really cheap, again, fouls that he's going to pump fake. Let him do his thing. If he makes a shot, don't give him a free opportunity for a 3-point play, or, God forbid he does it from the 3-point line and you just hack at him and, there you go. You have 3 free shots. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's their biggest hope. Obviously, he's played outstanding in these playoffs. He really is.
He's their Obi-Wan Kenobi right now. He is their only hope for the Miami Heat, and I don't even know if it's the great hope, to be honest with you. And
for some reason, Bam Adebayo has been horrible in these first 2 games, and he's an all-star. I thought that he would be a tough matchup for the Celtics, but Rob Williams has done a really good job since coming back.
He's been really good. He's been
excellent. Yeah, I mean, let's not forget, before he got hurt, he was also in contention for Defensive Player of the Year. Yeah. He's that good. In fact, I would have voted for him. I think he can do even more than Smart because he's 6'8". I mean, and he can contest 3-point shooters because he's so long. But, I mean, if Kyle Lowry doesn't come back, it's Jimmy Butler, with a lot of other guys that, are undrafted free agents in the backcourt, or PJ Tucker, if he's hurt as well, who's an elite defender, but he's not going to give you a lot offensively.
Tyler Hero's not going to shoot you to a championship.
He's really good. I mean, he's 6th man of the year and averaged 21 a game. But again, now you're starting to put too much pressure on him. If PJ Tucker's out, we're going to see more of Duncan Robinson, who can light it up from 3, but also give up a ton of points on the other end. So yeah, I mean, the Celtics are in good shape right now.
Well, look, this Celtics team, they're they have early 2000s Detroit style defense, not style, but effectiveness defense. Like, they're that great on defense, but they're a lot better than that team was on offense. Like, that team was okay on offense, but they won a lot of games was it 88-81? I mean, a little bit different
Sure.
era of basketball, but certainly not, that different in terms of scoring prowess. But that was a team that grinded it out, won defensively. And, this team, the Celtics, can do that, but they're also very capable, as we saw last night, of putting up nearly 70 points and a half and doing that on a regular basis. So obviously, if you're an opposing team, you not only have to match them defensively, you have to also put up points because, maybe you do match them defensively and maybe you eke out a win against another team, but you may match them in this situation, but you're still not scoring enough points because the Celtics are generally going to, through hella high water, they're going to put up points because they're going to keep chucking up those threes until it works. So, and usually, eventually, it does start to work at some point. So, we'll see what happens. Obviously, Game 2 of the Golden State Dallas series is tonight. Game 3 of that's tomorrow, correct? I had the schedule in front of me, and okay,
every other day.
Yeah, every other day. So Game 3 tomorrow for the Celtics. I think if they go in and win that game pretty comfortably, I think you're, for all intents, the series I think is going to be over. I just don't see much of a comeback in Miami moving forward. But again, a lot can change in 24 hours, so we'll see. We're going to say goodbye for now. We will be back at the start of next week, obviously, to break down anything that may or may not happen in the NFL. Again, we're kind of getting to the downtime. We got some OTAs going on right now, rookie mini camps, but for the most part, player movement is kind of slowed right now, and we might see some things here in the future in the next few weeks once we get closer to training camp. But for now, we're just enjoying the downtime. So give us a follow on Twitter at FPC Radio Live. We are also at Full Press Radio on Twitter, and of course at FP_coverage on Twitter as well. I was kind of getting things confused. I was supposed to give the address to the website, which I'm going to do right now, fullpresscoverage.com. Head over to the podcast tab. You can check out all of our shows, including this one here, where you can check out all of our great segments and shows and all that stuff. So, John, have a great weekend. I am looking forward to. Yeah, thank you. Hopefully, we'll be talking about a 2-1 series lead for the Boston Celtics on Monday. And maybe planning on a NBA Finals trip for the green up there in Northeast. So thank you everyone for tuning in, and we will talk to you